Better at Home, a project of the Atlanta Scholars Kollel.
Let's talk about the character of self-control. Now, self-control is not just a character, it's sort of all-encompassing, and really sometimes we could say, well, I have better control in this area than that area. But maybe there's just a general sense of how to develop self-control. And again, this goes back to like, something's happening, I feel like I want to do it, stop, and hear the arguments in your head. Why should I? Why shouldn't I? You know, one of the ways that the old Musser masters used to try to develop self-control was they'd go to the bus stop and wait for the bus. Now, most of us aren't using the bus, but they'd wait for the bus with one rule. You cannot check if the bus is coming. Look forward, eyes forward, sit at the bus stop, and never look to your side to see if the bus is on its way. There's no prohibition to look if a bus is on its way. The Torah has no such concept of you're not allowed to check if the bus is coming. But this is someone who's doing this to work out that muscle of self-control. Fortunately, it's in a place where it doesn't matter, because the truth, I know it feels like if you check for the bus it might come quicker, but it won't, right? So you're in this space where your brain says, there's the bus here, right? But that doesn't change whether it is or isn't. And so they would sit and look. And in fact, there's a story of an old Musser master who was getting older, and he sat at a bus stop and looked to see if the bus was coming. And he said, oh boy, if I had done that and back when I was in the Musser Academy, I would have heard it, you know? Meaning, who's in control here? Right? Are you in control? Your impulse is in control. Now, the truth is, all of us, it's a little bit of both. A little bit of this, a little bit of that. You know? But if I want to develop self-control, at least let me observe it, like an outside observer. Say, gee, why do I do that? Why can't I stop myself? You know, there's got to be a way to understand that and develop it. And the truth is, I remember when I was a young man, I met a man, Rabbi Wolbe, Rabbi Shlomo Wolbe, who was kind of considered to be the Musser master of modern times. He passed away about 10, 15 years ago. But I once saw him walk into shul, into services Sunday morning. And I noticed something very specific. That he walked in, he directed his eyes where he was walking, and did not look right and left. In other words, the average person, you look around, curious, look around. There's no prohibition to look around. None. There's no prohibition to look around the synagogue when you walk in. None. There's nowhere in the Torah. But here was a man who was trying to train his full, complete self-control. And so it was clear. He walks in, and one of the ways he manages self-control is he says to himself, I'm going there, my eyes are there, I'm not looking around. Not because there's any prohibition. He decided to develop this black belt level of self-control. It's a muscle. You work on it. And it struck me as notable. Now you know, if you meet a person like that on the average, like a person who will never look around, you kind of get scared. Like, are they a psychopath? You met him. He's the friendliest guy around. Because he's a Musser master. But this was just about him working on his own self-control, which means that there are times when we need to put in a practical challenge, as we always do when we work on a character, and then think about it and feel what is happening. So I mentioned in a previous video, and it's on your handout for this particular character, the idea of putting food on your plate but not eating for 5 minutes. Right? And for those of you, like me, who have a hard time not finishing all the food on your plate, because I remember growing up, I'd finish the plate and lick the plate. My mom was like, that's not polite. Probably isn't. I don't do that part anymore. Right? There was this idea of always leaving some behind on your plate. But it looks yummy. Okay, right? This is the challenge for a week or two. Developing self-control requires a self-control challenge. So on the list I've put, for example, take a span of time, 15 minutes, 30 minutes, and don't touch any part of your head from your neck up. Now, you may have noticed that in this video, I think I've already done that 2 or 3 times. And it struck me, this one came to me because if you remember at the beginning of COVID, when a lot of the folks were giving these press conferences, and they'd say, remember, don't touch your face, okay? It's critical that nobody touch their face. And there was these videos of people like, it's not easy. You get an itch, you get an itch, or it's a habit. There is no Torah prohibition to touch your face. It is permitted. It is permitted to touch your face. This is just a creative way of learning. See, gotta straighten my yarmulke. A creative way of learning self-control. Just put myself in a position to feel like I really want to do something, and then hear my voice, hear my inner voice, hear my thoughts about why I should, why I shouldn't, what's so hard about it, can I do this, can I not do this? There's no and if you touch your face, okay, you touched your face, nothing happened. But this is developing that muscle of self-control. I noticed another thing that, so this was just another option for people who use salty language, as I called it, 4-letter words. For many people, it's just a habit. It's just the way they talk. So this is another good challenge. See how long, pick an hour or two where you're just not going to use any of that language. Nothing bad's going to happen, I suppose. It's not like you need those words to get things done, probably. But as you go there, your brain will be like, but if I don't, listen to the voice. Think about, why is it easy? Why is it hard? Right? There's so many ways in which lack of self-control can harm us. In fact, there's a Mishnah in Pirkei Avos. See, all of what I'm teaching you here is somewhere in Talmud and Mishnah. We're just bringing it to the practical world. The Mishnah in Pirkei Avos says that jealousy, desires, and honor remove a person from the world. What it means is it can destroy your life. Jealousy and desires and the need for honor will destroy your life. The crazy part about this is that a good part of our Western society is built on those 3 things, right? Every commercial and marketing is about jealousy, desires, and honor. I mean, it's just, that's kind of like a lot of our entertainment and the zeitgeist, sort of, But it ruins our lives. You think about people who, if they lack self-control, we can do things that are very bad for our health, overeating and, indulging, or certainly if it involves smoking or drugs, What about people having affairs? Right? That's a lack of self-control. And even smaller things like, sorry, honey, I can tell you're in a bad mood and you need my attention, but the big game is on. I'm going to skip a divisional playoff game of my favorite team, and I've been waiting years. Do I have that kind of self-control? The truth is, practice and self-control really is throughout the practice of observant Judaism, right? If you're keeping kosher, you're keeping Shabbat, there's a lot of places where this comes into practice, right? You go somewhere and you're hungry, and you go into a store and you want to get something to eat, and over there is they've got a little grill where they're making burgers, which aren't kosher, but over here I could buy a pack of peanuts, You're on the road and that's all you get. So that's an example of self-control that's built into Judaism. Of course, if you live up in New York, you can find kosher everywhere in 48 different types, And the same for Shabbat, There's a zillion different things I may want to do on Shabbat that I'm not allowed to do. I especially think of this when it comes to, sports and ball games. And, we're all proud of Sandy Koufax. We say, listen, he was a great pitcher and it was Yom Kippur. He said, no, Yom Kippur's more important. I wonder how many Jews were watching the game, right? And of course, we know that here in Atlanta, a certain Jewish pitcher pitched on Yom Kippur for a very important game, and it didn't go well. Maybe if he came to Yom Kippur services, the Braves maybe could have won the playoffs. Who knows? But the reality is we all struggle with self-control. There's an interesting Musar Master story about, there's 2 of them, they're very similar. One was where there was a Musar Master who was working on himself. And he wakes up at night and he feels like he's a little thirsty, not desperate, but a little thirsty. And he thinks, oh, this is a good opportunity to work on my self-control. I won't go get a drink. I'll go back to sleep. But then he thinks to himself, wait a minute, maybe I'm not getting a drink because I'm being lazy. How do I know this is me being full of self-control? Maybe I'm just being lazy. And as a Musser master, I need to conquer my character. Giving you a second to think what he did. What he did is he got up, he went to the sink, did not get a drink, and then went back to his bed and went to sleep. Because he wanted to really conquer all that. Self-control, not being lazy. We're not all there yet. None of this is prohibited. You are permitted to get a drink in the middle of the night. It's fine. But this is not about that. This is about coming up with creative, practical ways to build your character. You don't have to do what someone else is doing. And it's especially important to understand. Not every person struggles with the same character traits or the same control. If I say this thing about putting food on your plate and not eating it, some people will laugh. They say, I do that anyway. People wonder why I haven't started eating. I space out. I start talking. Okay, then that's not the thing you should be doing to work on. Find something else. And if you see something that someone else is doing, doesn't mean that's the thing you should do unless it's relevant for you and growing as a person, right? So you need to sort of look for those things that you struggle with. Find a small way to challenge it. We're not trying to transform you and say, well, I know what I'm going to do. I'm going to lose 100 pounds. Try not to do that, especially if you weigh 140 pounds. Right? But this is not about tomorrow morning I'm going to be different. The whole system is picking an opportunity for an experience, for an exposure to one of these challenges, and giving yourself the opportunity to be cognitively aware of the processes in your brain, the voices, the arguments that your brain is saying, do it, here's why you can, here's why you can't, and challenge those voices, right? So take on, for the next week or two, either one of the ideas that you find on your sheet or something you come up with, right? We're hopefully going to meet and share what we picked, share our successes and our failures. And by the way, a failure in Musser isn't necessarily a failure because you have the chance to hear the voices, to hear what the argument was, to listen, process, and understand yourself a little better. You're ready for the next battle, right? So let's go ahead this coming week, work on self-control, pick a small area, listen to those voices, whether it's touching your face. I've already touched my head about 4 times in this video, right? Pick a good a decent amount, 15 minutes, 30 minutes, or controlling your speech, food on the plate, or anything else you come up with, right? And let's see how we do, and we'll get together and discuss it.